Welcome to the Cuddy Neckbone Zone, and my special guest today is Mr. Charlie Shaw.
Hey Kev, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm Charlie Shaw. I also have a podcast called Shield Up. Kev asked me to come on. We do shows together, and today's topic is something that's near and dear to us both. Seeing as both of us have spent a couple decades or more in law enforcement, and it's something that we've all come in contact with throughout our career, and that's first responder mental health. And when I say first responder, I'm not just talking about law enforcement officers that, local, federal, state. I'm talking about firefighters. I'm talking about the folks in the medical field. I'm talking about anybody that's taking care of the public. And when I say taking care of the public, taking care of those in need of any type of services where they're at a critical moment in their life and they need assistance. And one of the things that's very serious in our profession is our mental health, because one, the public is expecting us to be on point all the time. Even our families are expecting us to be on point all the time. But we also have issues going on. And Kevin asked me to do the show with him because I was out for a few days, and one of the first things I noticed, I was like, hey, what's going on, man? What's on your mind? He recently told me about an officer. We both worked at Orange County at one time together. I don't recall the person, and we're going to keep his name confidential, respect to him and his family. Just committed suicide. And we understand that the pressures of job, family, environment is very serious. And Kev, talk to us. Tell us what's going on with you.
Okay.
Why did that affect you so much?
Well, I'm going to because it's not new.
It's not new.
It's not new.
It's an ongoing event that needs to be talked about, that we don't talk about.
Yeah, and before we go on, we're not psychiatrists. We're not clinical psychiatrists. We're just actual people who are in the profession, and I don't think we get the conversation hasn't been had yet.
Right.
Because it's always the same thing. I didn't see it coming.
No.
What happened, or I can't believe that they did whatever they did. And this is from first story I heard in 1994 when I got hired, of somebody committing suicide that looked like they had the world by the you-know-what.
Right.
And throughout our careers, I think we were actually talking about it before this show, like throughout our careers, in all capacities, like I said, whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a fire marshal, it could be anything where you see like a nurse.
Right, nurse or EMT, paramedic.
Yeah. Oh, EMTs, yeah, forget about it.
Right.
But the difference is, I guess, how do you cope?
How do you cope?
And I'm going to tell you right now, back in the day, and I don't care how, I don't know, there's no such thing as, you had coping mechanisms, and they were normally drinking, women and or men, depending on what you were,
right,
gambling,
yeah,
and a dark sense of humor.
yeah.
And those were your coping skills, and they still are.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, these days, a lot of those things were, at least they were legal.
Mm-hmm.
In today's society, there are also things that are getting to be taboo.
Right.
They're judgmental. You can't have a drinking problem.
No.
You can't be a functioning alcoholic to get to your problems.
Right.
That was a 70s, 80s, and 90s thing.
Oh, we know. I've seen functional alcoholics. Early in the game, there was a officer that used to come to work every day with, you could smell the alcohol on his breath, and I was like,
yeah.
And I was just coming out of the military. I was like, I came in, I was in the military in the late 80s, early 90s, and we were just getting into that era where you can't, substance abuse they were cracking down on that.
Right.
And being young, coming into, adulthood, I thought that they had all that stuff taken care of.
Yeah, no.
But those older guys and girls were dealing with things,
Yeah, and
But
you,
they were trying to correct it so that we didn't have to deal with it.
well, and you had, we can call them unhealthy coping mechanisms by today's standards, but
Right.
back then, it was just what you did. Like, I remember my first year or two on the job, like, I met with one of my Zone partners, and he was sitting in a car looking kind of jacked up,
Right.
and I was like, dude, what's going on? He goes, oh man, he had saw like a kid get hit on a bicycle and died earlier in the day.
Right.
And he, you can tell it bothered him, as it should. And my response, and maybe his supervisor and everybody else who kind of brought it up, was, yeah, just go home and have a drink, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
What else are you gonna do?
Or here you go. We still see it to this day. The machismo.
Oh yeah, it goes without saying, because you
got to be tough.
didn't have a choice, and it's still, that stigma's still there today.
Right.
And actually, I'll tell you why that's there today, is because you can't be, their whole perceived weakness thing, especially, it is morphed into women in law enforcement, or that profession also, not just guys, but that's just what it morphed into, because you can't say there's something wrong with you.
Right.
I know there's a saying out there.
Put you on the bench. That's what you worry about.
It's okay not to be okay, but in the real world, here's the thing. I go, hey, Charlie, I'm not okay.
Right.
And you go, hey, Kev, I'm glad to hear that. Can you slide that gun and badge over here?
Yeah.
And we're going to go ahead and put you at,
out at the comm center.
Comm Center, Fleet, or
Right.
Evidence, or wherever. And we're going to just, we're going to take care of you.
But if we're dealing with the public,
Hey.
we're putting them in lakeside.
But check this out. So now whatever problems you were having, whether it was marriage or financial. So what happens when they side it around you like that? They take you off duty.
Take your off duty.
So
everything's shut down.
that's your income that's
Right.
also being affected.
Right.
Say your problems were financial.
Right.
Did that help?
That did not resolve the issue.
Okay. And say it was relationship problems.
Yeah.
Did it help to put you on the sideline and in your own personal well-being? What happens when they put you on the sidelines like that?
Shuts you down, man.
No, it may shut you down, but what happens around you?
Oh, now you're being stereotyped by your colleagues.
Or you can say stereotype, but maybe they're stereotyped also because you can't talk to them.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to talk to them. It's like you're damaged goods.
Now you're damaged goods.
Yeah, you're
Right.
isolated. Nobody, hey, you hear what happened to Charlie? And I can't call you or anything like that. Just
You're told sometimes not to call the person.
yeah. And the same goes with if you're under investigation,
Yeah.
whether it's sustained or not.
Same rules do not apply to being investigated for misconduct acts and comparing that to he's having a crisis in his life.
Right.
And he just need help. He or she just needs help getting through it.
Yeah, it's like to ask for help like that. And I know, there's discrete programs and all that, but it all depends on how bad it is.
Right.
Because ultimately it doesn't help you, so it's easier to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because I can't say, hey, I'll throw out, I won't throw out specific names, but I can't say, and I mean companies and whatnot, I can't say, hey, Charlie, I know you're having some mental issues and all this stuff. Go work your off duty at you insert name of theme
Right.
park or
Right,
grocery store or,
Or event.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now, how do you navigate that and say, we're gonna take care of you and everything's gonna be fine?
Well, it takes a strong manager, strong supervisor, strong friends, strong colleagues.
Bingo.
That's what it takes. You can't excuse that. And for anybody out there struggling with crisis or issues, it's also their responsibility to speak up as well.
Yeah, but even though that is the hardest thing to do,
Right.
I'm not gonna sit there and tell you that, oh, that's all because that is hard. That's something that needs, I think that's the real problem, is that needs to be identified. Just
Right.
like the guy that you were describing, like, hey, I smell alcohol in that guy's breath.
Right.
There's been dozens of people like that have come through in the 28 years, and you know what? They literally had to be bad enough not to be able to operate a motor vehicle.
Yes. That's the
Yeah.
only time that is addressed.
Yeah.
when you're about ready to destroy government property.
Yeah, but guess what? That person been coming in,
Been doing it.
being a functional alcoholic from the 70s and 80s
Been doing
for years,
Been
and
doing
it's been, there is such a thing as a functional alcoholic, and they will not cause any more damage than somebody who doesn't drink.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
why that's where that title comes from.
Yeah.
That sometimes they operate better.
Mhm.
You take the booze away from them, they might perform worse.
Yeah. Well, they said they'll have to start facing their reality.
Well, yeah, the reality is it's a profession, and once again, it's all encompassing when we say first responder. You have to know a hell of a lot more in 2024 than you did in 1994.
Mhm.
Look at, it's one of those, the deal with the first responder title is that your job literally changes daily.
Daily, depending on well, no, first responder, it's changing daily because you're molding yourself into what the environment is, what's
Right.
going on in the environment.
Yeah.
You know, if you're working, if you're not out there on the streets coming in contact with the public day in, day out, then you got a little control over what your tasks are for the day. But if you're running from call to call to call to call,
Mm-hmm.
oh man,
Yeah,
that puts some stress on you.
But you're playing the odds, because look at what you have to know now versus even 20 years ago.
Mhm.
You have to be able to identify people's mental states,
Mhm.
what they have, what's the new catch title of this person's deficiency that you're supposed to assess in like the 20 seconds that you meet them.
Yeah.
You
Quick.
should have known. You should have known this. You should have known that.
Mhm.
What's considered a threat.
Yes.
What me and you consider threats from our time is
Normal.
yeah, but now when I look at a lot of things that I see on the news and police videos and et cetera, so on, that I try not to get too engulfed in, but the reality is that you see a lot of people being afraid of things that maybe once upon a time, like, it's almost like they're being trained to, you're not being trained to assess a threat, you're being kind of trained to be afraid of a threat.
I want to say fear.
Yeah,
Be fearful of.
trying
Be
to be
fearful
nice.
of. Be fearful of the people in your community.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there. I listen to all these things, and I've heard it for years. One of my, it gives me like, just chills when I hear somebody say, that whole, when somebody reaches in their pocket, it doesn't mean shit if you can't corroborate with something. Like,
Right.
he reached in his pocket, I thought he was going to kill me. I thought he was going to shoot me. It's like, you need more.
You need a little bit more.
When police stop having to articulate that, reaching in my waistband, and at one time we had phrases, he made a furtive movement.
Right.
Like,
Language.
yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Did you see a gun? You don't have to be shot, but you do have to articulate, like, the situation you're in, what's perceived, because now we live in a world, one time recently, this guy was being, a couple of cops are on him, and he's resisting, like,
Right.
literally resisting by not wanting to be handcuffed.
Yeah,
not,
he was
not,
very passive.
yeah,
aggressive.
not throwing and punching, and
Right.
we all know the difference with
Pulling
that.
away.
Well, what this guy did is he reached in his pocket, and to be honest, it's a different world we live in. There's a day where he just would have been shot because he was going for a gun. And you can't fault anybody for that, but what he was reaching in his frickin' pants pocket to text his girlfriend he was going to jail. That's the world that is ever changing, that
Right.
you can't just do what you did. You'd be in that exact same situation, but even though it seems the same, it's different.
Right.
And the reverse where that's happening, people have been shot. Like, it is a split second decision thing, but you do have to articulate whatever.
And we need more conversations like this among the troops, and I hope that that's what they're doing in the training academies and the blocks of training, monthly blocks of training, that not everything is a threat out there.
Yeah, and I fear that's.
But we don't want anybody doubting themselves when they're out there on the road either.
Well, there's a gosh, it was a simulator exercise maybe a few years ago. It was,
Don't shoot.
yeah, and it's like, there was a guy that, one of the scenarios, he was on the back of a pickup truck with a cinder block. And, I don't know, we're from here to, I don't know, 20 feet, 25 feet away, and you had people actually pulling a gun on him. And it's like, in the real world that you live in, if anybody can throw a cinder block that far and hit me,
Sign them up in the NFL.
I deserve what I get. But that's not a go-to reaction, is to pull your gun initially. Why are you pulling your
You
gun?
back off.
Only because I asked the guy who was running the simulator, I'm like, how many people do you have? Because I'm always that guy asking freaking questions. I'm like, he's like, yeah, we've had a handful. And I'm like, and there's always the younger generation. Like, dude, maybe it's just growing up that you never had a rock thrown at you, or somebody shot you with a BB gun or whatever.
You know, I don't want to bag on the younger generation, but they're being exposed to, and not being exposed directly, but seeing more videos of incidents, and they think that that's always going to happen to them, and that's not your scenario. That's a scenario that happened to someone else.
Yeah.
But you have to be mindful that something like that could happen, but you have to be paying attention or be vigilant that things do happen, but make a good assessment. Make a good assessment at the time.
Yeah, but that's the way this generation is geared. Like, when they hear something, it's like, oh, that's the way it is.
Oh,
It's
everybody's
like,
throwing a brick center
yeah,
block.
yeah. It's like, no, it's going to be different every time.
Right.
You might have a guy that, like you said, can throw a hell out of a brick and kill you. but you know what?
But the average person is not doing that.
Yeah, it's like,
That's 1 out of 10.
yeah, you can't just, it is not a generalized profession. Right. And I think getting back to the topic of what happens to, I'm just going to speak cops, and mainly because that's what I can identify with, is, holy crap, man, there's so much stuff that can happen, and you fix, your mind is just used to fixing things and resolving situations, and when you can't resolve a situation, it screws with your psyche, especially when it's something that's happening to you personally.
Right.
Because you're ingrained into fixing problems, and any cop who's been around, trust me, your spouse is, don't talk to me like I'm somebody from work or whatever. You know, I know you've heard it 1,000. Everybody's heard that, because you're programmed to fix a problem.
Right.
That's literally your job.
That's your job.
And when you all of a sudden, like, something happens to you, like, hey, well, I was 25. I'm telling people how to raise their kids because they're asking me. I'm telling them about how to go about their divorce or how to save their marriage. Now, I ain't never been married or had kids back then.
Now you're offering that assistance.
Yeah, so I'm into that, and that's the way it rolls. But guess what? When, at the end of the day, most of the things that we talk about is when people are having their own personal problems, whether it's relationships, drugs, drinking, stressors at work that they're too embarrassed to say I'm stressed at work, or I can't handle this promotion kind of thing. They don't know how to deal with it because you're not trained to deal with your own shit.
I was just going to key in on that. You know, we know all the resources to tell somebody in the public where to go to, who to talk to. But we won't, when I say we, I'm saying collectively because both of us carry that badge. But we won't even use the services that we're offering. Like, you know, I don't know how many deputies where I knew that they were having issues. I worked on the critical incident response team for many years, and I was offered that opportunity, and I'm glad I took it. For deputies in a crisis.
Right.
And one of the first things I've always offered them was the EAP program. You know, most agencies have a program where if they need financial assistance, temporary financial assistance, if they need to speak to a psychologist, if they need assistance with it could be in anything, you know, and some take it, some don't. I don't follow up. I offer it.
Right.
I didn't follow up, but I offered it, and I gauged the person that I came in that encounter with, to see how they were doing. Every once in a while, I would, notice that they're doing better. But if it's a repeat occurrences, I would ask them, did you check in on that? Now, there was a few situations where we've had to pull people off the road.
Mhm.
We've had to, sideline somebody in operations.
But that's always a big deal.
It went there because now you're affecting your colleagues. Your actions are affecting your colleagues.
Mhm.
And as a manager, you have to step up. You have to be that obstacle where you don't want this person to hurt folks that you're working with.
But look how bad that has to get before that happens.
But that's just, we just got done talking about it. I mean, that's just the way it is, because some people move like lasagna with their issues. You don't even know that they have issues
Move
until
like lasagna.
very, very quiet.
Wow. Let me write that down.
You know how lasagna's cooking in the oven, you don't even know it's cooking.
Man, that must be some Wisconsin stuff right there. I like it though, I'm gonna use it.
But am I right though? You
No,
don't
you're
even know that they
absolutely
have an
right.
issue until there's an issue.
No, and that's what happens, cause it all like manifests.
Mhm.
It looks like, oh, it happened because of this, but something's been going on for quite some
Right.
time.
Right.
And you never know what it is because it's kept quiet.
Mhm. It's kept quiet. And sometimes they've already gone to someone about it. And that's another thing, that if we have to trust each other. I will never say, hey, look, if you and I, if we're buddies on the force and you're having an issue, and hey, look, man, you gotta identify what's an issue and what's not an issue. You gotta identify, is this issue gonna affect the well-being of the officers that we work with? And it's your responsibility as a friend to say, hey, look, man, you told me something that is serious. I'm gonna have to let our supervisor know about it, and that's the only person I'm gonna tell about it. But you as a responsible officer, you have to make sure that everyone's protected. Do you agree?
I agree, but does it happen? Because that also puts a label on you too.
Well,
That-
I would take that label.
Well, you would at this particular stage in your career, but back
But as
then,
a 5-year deputy,
Yeah.
5-year and under deputy,
5-year
it
deputy,
would
are you
probably, and that's the reason why I started up the show Shield Up, because there are responsibilities that when you're working in a profession that we're working in, or any profession,
right?
you have to honor those responsibilities that you signed up for.
Well, I try not to suffer from presentism because because I just saw it on the news the other day, and I'll go back to the George Floyd incident, that
Right.
those 3 officers that were there,
Oh,
hey, I'm gonna sit there and say that if my FTO and I had 3 months on and my FTO was doing that, no, I'm not gonna tell my FTO what to do.
And I can say that I would probably, and I doing total recall. That's
You don't
It's
know.
hard to admit that you would probably be intimidated by that
Yes.
FTO.
You just got your job, you wanna keep your
Yeah.
job, and God knows what kind of groundwork he was laying down to put in your psyche before
Right.
that happened. You're not thinking your training officer's gonna kill somebody.
Yeah.
You're not thinking it, you're doing what you're told,
Yeah.
and I can sit there now at my 28-year mark and go, yeah, that's not a hostile crowd, because I've been in a
that
hostile
wasn't
crowd.
hostile.
No, but when you get that stuff fed into you, you buy into it. Like they've never been in a hostile crowd. They've never been. If you saw how, I'm not gonna harp on this too much, but it's just like the nature of the business. Like Floyd was a pretty big guy.
He was a big man.
Yeah, you know how hard it is to handcuff some uncooperative person that big.
We're not gonna get into details of it, but was he hostile?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I submit to you that if he was able to be handcuffed, and
He was
I looked
under
at that
control.
video, I looked at that video.
He was
Nobody was
under-
breathing hard. Nobody was stressed.
They were just looking at the crowd.
Yeah. With that being said, and things that you know, and this is hey, this is one other thing that you know from experience.
I throw the flag on it.
Yeah, when you have a guy, and this is what kind of aggravates me about law enforcement, because they don't speak up. Everybody kind of disappears in the background. When you have a guy that big, and I know you have,
Mhm.
because you've done a lot of fugitive stuff
Right.
too. You had a guy that big, and he's handcuffed and he's laying on his stomach. You know how long it takes him to get up?
Yeah, it
How,
takes,
how much assistance does he need to get up?
man, I need assistance just when we're doing burpees. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, why are you on him?
Why are you on him? That dude's
Yeah.
not moving.
Yeah, and it's like really, it's like.
And
when
plus, you know how hard it is to breathe on your stomach,
Yeah,
on your chest.
I used to do the role playing. This was like in my late 30s.
Right.
Do the role playing with the recruits, and they cuff you and throw you on your
Yeah.
stomach. Yeah, dude. I thought I was in shape, but yeah, you know what? You can breathe. Breathing. I should say breathing is labor. I'm not gonna say you
Yeah,
can't breathe.
your breathing is labor.
Yeah.
But with labor breathing comes panic.
Yeah, and because I know where I was,
Right,
I'm
right.
not in panic mode.
Right.
I'm very uncomfortable realizing that.
But if you're laying in the streets of State of Maine, at the corner of State of Maine, there's gonna be some panic set in.
And somebody's on you, and you're geared up because you don't know what you did, and the concrete is freaking hot in hell.
In Florida,
Yeah.
you ain't gonna be laying there long without saying, "Hey, can you move me off this ground?"
When you put all those factors together, I say that because we can sit here now and say that, but when I was a 3-month freaking recruit, those guys just got out. They did 3.5, whatever. And you know what? You can't say, I don't want to say they deserve it, but you can't say that that's something needed to happen, because ultimately just a guy was murdered in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And you can call it whatever you want, and
Right.
he shouldn't have did this, because to this day, and I'm gonna leave this subject in a minute, but because I don't know, to this day, was that $20 bill even counterfeit?
You know what that
Anybody ever
was?
mention it?
To me, dude, that was civil.
It was totally civil.
I wouldn't even use the energy on
28 years versus 28 months. I mean, and whatever this guy's deal was.
what is ran checks on the person. You don't got no wants or warrants. You want to file? Here, give me. Come on.
Look at all the things that happened when it was over nothing. A lot of the stuff that we see is over nothing because people are afraid to they're afraid to make decisions and to call things what they are, because getting back to all of the things that you have to deal with your career, with your personal life, all the things you see. Normally you're declining health because of just getting older and being wrapped up into things, because some golden boys, you might be that guy that has worked out their whole life and
Right.
always makes the time, but that is very rare.
And that's another thing. We tend to, fall, get away from all that working out.
Yeah.
As your career.
It's called life, unless
You start
unless you're a
life.
SWAT guy.
No, they're
Unless you're,
they're working out all the time. You're in
Yeah.
training,
Yeah.
or you work at HQ where, hey, I can take 2 hours out. Man, we couldn't even take a 15-minute lunch break sometimes.
No, I had the
You had to
phones
steal that.
ringing.
Yeah, well, radio going. By the time I got off the road with Orange County, I had a laptop, and that thing was always blinking.
Yeah.
Call here, or you got to go check up on your partners. Just because you may take a lunch break, don't mean that your partner's out there taking lunch break.
And those are all stressors
Right.
going up. And I think one of the most amazing things that I think after retirement, one of the things that just naturally occurred,
Mm-hmm.
my blood pressure went down a lot. Not like a little bit. I mean, I was like 145 over 98, that kind of guy. Like,
You know the funny thing about it, and I admit I was under a little stress when I left.
Yeah.
But it wasn't stress where I felt like doing harm to myself or anybody
right. It
else.
was just the natural
It
stress
was just
of
the
the
natural
job.
stress of the job. But you enhance that with other factors that's going on in the person's life.
Yeah.
Then that's what you're gonna get. You need that's a crisis. It can turn into a crisis.
Hey, guess what? I'm gonna
And health.
Because we just talked about it. How much did you weigh when you got to the gym?
Oh man, I came in that gym in November when I retired. I was 315.
Now,
265.
315 of that was all stress.
All stress.
And not taking care of yourself.
Not taking care of
because
myself.
whatever.
And like I told you, I'm in a transformation. I'm trying to live a better, healthier lifestyle now because it's necessary. If what we were talking about now, what we're talking about today, and I was able to talk about that 5, 10 years ago, I would have probably been more healthier. You know, I wouldn't have let the stresses of the job take me out. I would have paid more closer attention and took care of myself. Although I'm taking care of the public and taking care of my deputies, I would have paid more attention to my own well-being as well.
You know what you don't do is you don't do that because guess what? If I get my shoulder fixed, I'll be out 6 months. I'm gonna lose this.
Oh,
and that. If
I've
I gotta
been there,
get
bro.
this, yeah, it's like
I've been there.
you stress.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, you know what? If I go and get my knees, and I had 3 knee operations, but I never had them while I was in management because if I get this, I'll be out of work for a minute, and next thing I know, somebody else has slid into my job.
Yeah, or somebody would, hey man, Charlie's out again. He's really milking this stuff
Yeah.
this time, and
Yeah.
it's like all that stuff of your condition. Well, I got to come back. Like, do your rehab.
Do
Take
your
the
rehab.
time you
Take care of
need.
yourself.
But you're not conditioned to do it. There's so many people. I've had so many employees that have gotten things done, and part of it is they don't know what to do with their time. They don't know how to sit home and relax, and then they come back early. They're stressing about off duty that they've lost it. They look at it as them losing something.
Right.
You're taking something away, and I can argue about the off-duty crisis that deputies and firefighters can put themselves into. It's like that's not your normal income.
No, and that's one of the first things that they teach us when I used to be Orange County with you was this is extra money, not regular money.
Yeah.
And then with me with the Marshal Service, your extraditions, your details, your TDYs of the headquarters, all that is extra. Don't base your needs, not your wants, your needs off that income because it's not always guaranteed.
Yeah. How many times I've seen somebody they blow their knee out and they can't make a car payment.
Can't make a car payment.
It's like, dude,
That's a stressor.
yeah, it is a stressor, and all you do is you come back early hurt.
Yeah.
And you're not fully healed up, and all the mental crap that goes along with that.
Well, in my case, I had a knee injury right before it was time for a promotion, and I had to go up to headquarters I had to go to the training academy if I wanted to promote to investigator. I had to go up there and run that mile and a half, do all that training. And man, I couldn't do it. My knee was jacked up.
Yep.
You know how much pressure that was on me to get sent back home? And I'm admitting this. And this is one of those times in my career where, man, I felt very ashamed that I couldn't complete something that was the basic.
Yeah. At the end of the day, your mindset's kind of like mine. I would not ask somebody to do something that I couldn't do.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
It jacks with you.
It jacks with you. But I got myself together and managed to, get through that time period. But you know what I also learned as I gotten older? Nothing's forever. Yeah, you're going through this right now. This is just a blip. It's just a blip. You're gonna get through it.
It just doesn't seem that way.
When you're in that valley,
Yeah, it's deep.
yeah. When you're in that valley, you're feeling that shadow of death. So
So how
what I'm trying to say about that is we have to reiterate that message that seek help, seek guidance, seek advice. Don't think that every time anything happened to you that somebody's out to kill your career.
Well, and that's the thing between what puts stressors on officers, and we're just talking officers right here because I got relatives who are firefighters. That's a whole other deal right there. But I think to help, first of all, I think that law enforcement should be 20 years, and you have to get out for a period of time.
Get out. Well,
I mean, like retire, almost like just you do 20 years. This whole in this day and age, 25 years and 30 years is too long.
Well, the way I look at it, I'm gonna go right up to the line, or almost up to the line with you. When I was in the military, there was something where you got sea duty and shore duty. Mm-hmm. Sea duty is stress because one, you're on a ship and you can be deployed. Like boom, you're out of here for six months, a year, whatever it is, whatever type of command you're in. And then you have shore duty, where You're working in an environment where you're going home every evening. You can see your family. I think that just like with the road, I think I don't know how it is now, but I remember back then there was deputies that was on the road with Orange County 10, 15 damn years. That is
Well-
way too long.
Well, and it's funny because I want to talk about that because
So with that being said, I'm gonna go to the Marshal Service. Some guys stay on warrants way too long. Warrants is high stress.
Yep.
You are running and gunning. You're exposing yourself to
constant danger.
constant danger. I didn't want to say the word because I don't want to have people thinking that that's all it is. But yeah, you are exposing yourself to those elements
And-
because you're like what and what we were doing. We were going after violent fugitives. Period. People that shoot back.
And there's a time in your life where that is extremely fun. I was there.
Yes,
and
it's
It's
extremely
like the
fun.
best job in the world.
It's
but-
extremely fun, but are you operating? You want to operate? Even Navy SEALs get a break every once in a
Yeah.
while.
yeah, and it's,
Are you going to operate like that day in, day out? It'll change your personality. It'll change your perspective on the general public. You will start thinking that everybody's like that. You'll be going up in Sam's Club thinking that everybody's going to shoot you if come on.
But you do, and that's the funny part because you're not. There's a period in your life where it's like, hey man, I remember thinking that's the only thing I wanted to do.
Right.
I'm good with that, and then like, after a while, like it's still good work, and you know what you're doing, and everything's different every day.
You have to take a break from that.
Yeah, you do, but the thing is like once you get in like I don't know, as far as like specialty units go,
Right.
once you get good at what you're doing,
You can always get good at something else.
yeah, you can, but
I'm getting good at this retirement
but-
thing,
but-
and I didn't think I would.
Hey, but what do cops do? They're in their comfort zone, and you were talking about
Well, Kev, it's one thing that I say, and there's enough people that know about me when I said it. You got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable.
yes, you're totally correct.
You have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable.
This is
Even when I was winding down for retirement, because in my mind, I had the numbers. I knew that I had to do something, and then that's why I joined the gym. I had to get myself uncomfortable. I had to wind myself down so that I wouldn't be that person running back to the shop like, oh, I miss you guys. What's going on today?
Dude.
No, they have to work. I have to move on with
Well,
life.
and that's horrible, and that gets me back to my 20-year theory or whatever. Because here's the thing, like, because I heard it back in the day. I remember there was a guy. He was a training officer, and this was back then. There was a 28, 29-year deputy.
Mhm.
Always worked the road. Didn't want to get promoted. Patrol was
Right.
his thing. Patrol, and he trained in FTO, and that was his thing. And I remember hearing one of the sergeants, and keep in mind, I got hired in '94, so these are guys rolling around at our age that got hired in like maybe the late '60s, early '70s. So he looks at me, he goes, I didn't subscribe to his point of view, but he said, look at that guy. He's been here 28 years and he's just a deputy. And that just implied that he was too lazy to take a promotional exam.
But a lot of times it's not that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but guess what? That is exactly what he said in the resume. And being in patrol is the hardest freaking job that there is. It's like, you're sitting there now, because you know what happens when you get into supervision.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but you're not doing what they do.
No.
You're not,
You're managing their what they're doing.
yeah, and you keep track of getting to, staying in supervision too long, you start to lose track. You kind of know procedural stuff, but as
Right.
usual, if you had to take your ass out there and do it yourself these days, you'd be like, holy crap, because maybe like a domestic isn't what it was when you were
Right.
on the road. There's too many other forms, there's too many laws, there's too many things. Just because you did it 20 years ago doesn't mean you can go out there and just do what they do today.
Well, I believe this is what I feel like. This is what I think. Yes, we do need senior guys in there, but we do need to rotate them off. We need those senior guys to train up the newer staff, and those guys need to rotate off there. I'm not saying if you made one key point, he was FTO, he was a trainer. Put him over in the training academy. Give him a break. Give him a 2-year break, and then say, okay, you got your break. You can go back out on the road now.
Yeah, and like I said, per se, that's just what he didn't mind. It wasn't just the perception from a supervisor, which is another thing getting us back to
If I was the sheriff or chief of police, I would make that mandatory, because my experiences over the years of watching deputies deteriorate both mentally and physically,
Mhm.
I don't think enough of that's being done. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't agencies that do that, but I think that's necessary, is that you need to take care of your people. And moving your people around to different shops, different divisions, I think that's necessary. It will also make a well-rounded employee.
That's kind of good and bad, and I guess it all depends on the situations. Because I hate when they move supervisors around. What that same moniker of it's going to make them more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is that some people are good where they are, and if you can move somebody who was good at this to over there, and they're freaking horrible, they might ruin a whole freaking division or department.
Well, maybe they're doing it deliberately because they don't want to be there.
Yeah, well, but that's the point. It's like, why can't people go where they want to go? And if everything's running smooth, I don't believe in that diversity thing. If you want to leave, if everybody's happy with the supervision in a place, leave it alone.
Well, once again, we were talking about the mental health of those jobs that are high stress.
Right.
Being a supervisor or being a department head, sometimes that's not physical high stress or putting yourself in the elements. Maybe if you're working in a courthouse and you're down there on the screening, but we're talking about guys that are in where they're operating.
Dude,
You tracking what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you yourself said that a lot of these bosses, they're not operating out there like that.
No, and some bosses are good at what they do where they're at, and you see it when it comes down from the chief or the sheriff or
Right.
whatever. It goes, hey Charlie, I know you're in charge of criminal divisions, but I'm going to move you over here to community policing. And your attitude's going to change because cops don't like change, and you don't want to go there.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah,
That's the problem. I don't mind change, and once again,
you are rare.
right. I don't mind change, but I think that that if I were to agree, if I were to agree with you, I would say in certain circumstances, yes, it's not a good move. But would you agree with me that if you're in a position, if you're on a job where it's high risk, do you think that it's necessary to move those people in and out of those spots after a couple 3-4 years?
And I would give. I don't believe in people being put in a place and when they learn what they're doing, you move them. I don't believe in that. I believe that if you want to do 10 years in a specialty unit, it makes you a resident expert, and you can share your knowledge when the newer people come in. But I've seen those units where everybody who's been there has been there for a couple of years.
But those guys, those old cats, man, I shouldn't say the senior guys,
Mhm.
they're approaching their twilight.
But that's how we're saying everything's different, because I've seen some guys that work homicide, been there for damn near 20 years, and they excel at what they're doing. So would it be fair to say, okay, you guys have been there too long, you need to move out when they're doing a great job?
Well, we're mainly talking about stressors.
But where we are, because that stressor, if I've been there for 20 years and you're telling me I gotta move, you just stressed me out. We're absolutely talking about stressors in the profession. Because there's really, I guess I'm saying it because there's really not too many winning ways. It's kind of like,
not.
if nobody's bitching.
So basically, you should do it on an individual
Yeah.
circumstance. Okay.
In my world, if you look at a department and you're talking at the clerk is happy with the captain or
Right.
lieutenant, and all the way up the chain, they're like, hey, we love Charlie. leave Charlie the frick alone.
All right, I'll meet you on that.
Because
and most times it is looked at on an individual basis.
yes, because
But I've seen a lot of people stay at Warren's, and I'm like, man, how are you functioning at home? Because you're never at home.
but I'm going to tell you that
How are you functioning with your colleagues? Because now you bickering with them all the time.
yeah,
You know.
we're talking stressors as far as like management, because management only looks at I'm moving Charlie. They're not seeing that when you're working and you do your job day in and day out, and you're like a civilian or maybe like lower in the food
Right.
chain as a sworn. When you find out that there's a new manager coming in,
You start stressing.
everybody starts stressing.
Right, because they don't know what his philosophies are. yet.
Exactly, and the reasons.
His or hers.
Yeah, and the reasoning behind all of that is like, you can destroy dozens of good employees by putting the wrong person in charge. And that's the part that needs to be researched, that it's not just Charlie needs to be more diversity. Charlie might be horrible in a certain spot. And that's what happens, but it's not just affecting Charlie, it's like everybody below, because nobody's gonna say, if I've been a clerk for 15 years and I just wanna come in every day and do my 9 to 5, you know, just leave me alone. Don't tell me I need to get promoted, or you wanna see me in a better spot, or maybe I should transfer, all the crap. Just, sometimes you gotta come in and let everything run smooth. You don't need to reinvent the wheel because somebody moved you.
Well, we're gonna agree to disagree.
Exactly, and that's like upper management versus mid-management
Right.
thing, but
I've seen it work.
at the end of the day, nobody cares where the stressors are, because you're like, oh, that's just the cost of doing business, and change is good and all that stuff. It's
I
not
don't
always
necessarily
good.
believe in that.
Yeah, it's not always good. It's not always good. And I know you cannot say change is always good. It can be like a moniker, but in certain places, certain things, certain systems work because that's just the way the systems are set up. And it doesn't need the wheel reinvented, and all those things add to employee stress is kind of what this main topic was about.
Right.
Because how do you fix people not being stressed? Because a lot of times when I found out when I was leaving, the stressors weren't coming from the things they weren't coming from the general public. They were more likely technology coming from the upper
Right.
management, rules and regulations changing, and what have
Policies.
you done? Yeah, it's like that puts the strain on lieutenants and captains and majors and all the way up the line. They used to not have those stressors. We used to be the running joke if the captain came in drinking his coffee every day and goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And you go,
Things are
"Fine."
good.
Yeah, and you need to drink the coffee and they leave. They didn't. Now they're coming in and going, "Oh, so all these numbers," and they're stressed.
Right.
And
Oh, I know about
it all
that.
rains down.
I know about that.
And that's what I'm saying. When people don't act like that exists, because now you have rank and file stress trying to justify their positions, and they're making it hard on everybody under them.
Yeah.
And that's a trend that started a while back. And a long way from, hey guys, hey, you made it. You made captain. Good. Go drink your coffee and go mind your business.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, keep it moving. Don't come in all of a sudden telling us that, oh, you need to do this and that, and we don't care what you heard, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But they're all stressors. And getting back to what's happening in law enforcement, you're just required to know too much. Your brain's only so big, and it's to the point now where the conversation that me and you are having now, I can't have somebody looking at a body cam footage 3 months later and decide that our conversation was inappropriate.
That's a lot of stress on folks.
Yeah, when nobody's there, because now you can't even communicate.
Right.
You can't make a off-color joke. All these coping mechanisms that cops used to have, they don't exist anymore.
No.
Now, what happens if you have an extramarital affair? What happens if you drink too much? What happens if you get caught drinking or get a DUI? You're normally going to get fired. Your career's over. What's going to happen when you tell an off-color joke and somebody hears it on body camera? You're probably going to get fired. Those things used to not happen because how do you deal with the
It's a
daily
double-edged
grind?
sword. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, but it's only a double-edged sword when, like, everything needs to result in a punishment. Would you not agree with that?
I can agree with that.
Yeah, and it's like, that used
But-
to not.
But see, this is where it comes in at, and this is the management side of it.
Mhm.
Agency first is the attitude, and then
Yeah, and without people, there would be no agency.
I understand that. But you understand what I meant by that,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's that philosophy that just doesn't hold water sometimes. And it's not always,
When it all goes back to, we gotta remind a lot of those things that you brought up, a lot of those points that you brought up was and moral behaviors, policy-driven behaviors, that they should know better.
yeah, and I heard a guy say, and it made a lot of sense, one of the guys I used to work with, and there was a time, and he's been around for a while, but he was, remember when you got hired, like, your reputation was your brand. You know, your words, your integrity, hey,
Right.
Charlie's a good guy, this, that, and the other, and it goes like that, where your testimony in court meant something.
Yes,
And
no one wants to be giggly over.
yeah, but guess what? Nobody wants to hear what cops have to say anymore. I don't want to hear Charlie. I want to see the body camera. I don't care what your viewpoint was, because wearing those. Did you last for the body cameras? Or were you gone?
Oh, I came up on the end of the body camera
Yeah,
with
so-
you guys.
Yeah. So if you're a peon, you have to put them on because it kind of aggravated that the upper staff never had to wear them. But
Well, the Marshal Service just started wearing them in this past, in the last year. The FTOs, you know, the local law enforcement that works in our task force,
Right.
they've been wearing it.
But if you're like a patrol person, whatever, and that camera sits on your shoulder, my camera sits on the shoulder and it's looking at you, and I'm looking over here, but guess what? The camera's still pointed at you. It's not realistic. It's like, just because you're looking at my body camera 3 months from now, you're assuming that I'm looking in the direction that it's pointed.
Yeah.
It's not the real world.
Right. Well, that's why they're centerpiece now.
So it doesn't, yeah, guess
But it
what?
still
It's here,
doesn't, it
it's
still
looking at
doesn't,
you.
yeah, you're right, you're
Yeah,
right.
It's a made up.
That's a different
world.
way of looking at it.
It's a made up world.
Yeah.
And you don't tell me that that's how programmed that the public is of thinking, I don't want to hear what Charlie has to say. Because the public, no matter where the camera's sitting, it's still mounted.
Still mounted.
Yeah, and I'm looking over here because I'm watching this guy over here, and when I do something, it's like, oh, well, it's not the same thing. And that's the whole.
That's a good point.
It's a very good point, and
That's
it's
a good
on
point.
point. But that's what people fall into, especially management, and they don't wear the shit.
But now it's time, you know, you gotta go back over, you know, even the body cam is a tool.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
It's a tool,
It's a good tool.
but sometimes you have to use other tools
And
in conjunction with the tools that are available. to
other
you.
tools consist of common sense. Because I don't know. I think one of the worst things that, and this is body cam review for all the people who don't know or whatever. So, you know, you might have to find at the end of the month or whatever. You might have to go find some body cam footage for your people to look at random videos.
Right,
Now, keep in mind.
that is what it is.
But keep in mind, no one's complaining. No one's complaining. You're being tasked to, you know where I'm going with this, Mr. Manager. You're being tasked to look at random videos for no apparent reasons other than finding wrongdoing, which used to be called investigations.
Well, random videos, can just be a pick, you know, I'm just gonna pick this
Yeah.
one and I'm gonna review it.
Yes, but
You know, that's just review of your employees
Oh.
and defense of management, that is their right to do
what,
that.
What kind of review is that, though?
I don't know their policy, but maybe they're looking for whatever they're looking for.
Yeah, it's they're investigating nothing, is what it is. You can clean it up however you want. They're investigating nothing. It's not a complaint. No one's complaining. You're looking at, and then you get scared because you go, oh man, I don't like the way he talked to Kevin, but you know what? If I don't say something, somebody else is going to look at it and they're going to wonder what I did. And that's the real world.
Oh, dry snitching is what you call it?
Yeah, because everybody's afraid of everything else, and that's when I go, okay, this is bullshit. There's no other way about it. You're investigating nothing
Right.
because somebody who has Sabar or whatever, apparently, hey, you know what's a great idea? let's go screw down employees for no apparent
I
reason
don't
at all.
look at it. I'm not, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you how to say that, but I don't look at it as you
Hey,
just
it's
screwing the employees for
let's,
nothing.
let's hear the
I
other
look at
version.
it, huh?
Let's hear your version.
Well, no, I'm not gonna, you know, I hear what you're saying. I hear it, taking it in, but it's not always the case. We know that there's misconduct going on out here. Even if this wasn't law enforcement, we know that there's
Well, how
misconduct.
do we identify misconduct? You get a complaint.
Well, you don't necessarily have a complaint. I mean, you get a complaint, but if you have a deputy out there not showing good conduct and he knows that his camera is on, I mean, come on,
How do you
man.
know that? Oh, you get a
What do you
complaint.
mean? Wait a minute. How do you mean you don't know? He
I
turned
said,
it
how do
off.
you-
That's
I said, how do you know?
The cameras are activated,
Yes.
and so if he's activated his camera with the public, he knows that his camera's on, and he's not conducting himself like a
Yeah.
professional.
Who?
Hold on. He's not conducting himself like a
Who
professional.
determines that?
He's not conducting himself like a professional after the camera's been turned on?
Who says that?
What do you mean who says that?
Who's complaining for
If
you to look at
if
the
you're the
video?
manager and your policy, if you're the manager, if your agency has it mandated for you to review policy, for the managers to review policy, regardless of how you feel about them reviewing policy or looking into an investigation, what have you, they have that right. That is their policy. You have the right not to work there.
How do you construe reviewing policy as to reviewing body cam footage?
If policy, every agency writes their policy for their body cam, right? Okay, so if their policies say that, okay, we're gonna review X amount of body cam videos randomly, I'm not, just like a year analysis.
Yeah.
We pick a number.
Yeah.
Or
It's just the way it is.
we're just picking a deputy.
Yeah.
I would want, me personally, this is just me, I would want that to happen. That way I know that my deputies are conducting themselves the way. Now, if that body cam's off, what do I care how you talking to the general public? But if you got that body cam on and you talking to the general public, yeah, hey man, you get what you get. If you're being disrespectful to the general public, or you out there acting, or out there not conducting yourself as a professional, and you don't got common sense enough to know, if you don't have common sense enough while the camera's on to conduct yourself like a professional, I'm not talking about you've worn body cam. You know that the body camera is activated by a certain activity, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so if a certain activity is activating that body cam, and you can't operate like a true professional that you swore to act like, then you get what you
Well, and I hear what you're saying, but consider this, once again, who's determining that I'm not acting like a professional?
get. Your managers.
Yeah, and that's my point. The managers who aren't there reviewing something that happened 50 days ago. Because I called, if I know a guy on the street and you've been there before, you're not gonna talk to everybody the same on the street. There's some cats you just know. And your conversations, your conversations are not going to be, sir, ma'am, thank you, whatever. You might be calling each other motherfuckers all day long.
Okay, I was out there, man.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not
what I'm saying.
I mean, you're not talking to somebody that went straight to only did a couple years in the ranks and then just went to management. No, I was out there. I understand that. That's my articulation. I can understand if you had to talk a little rough to somebody.
Yeah.
But are you going to talk rough to an old lady, or are you going to talk rough to a bunch of kids? What they quote jits. Are you going to talk rough to them just because you can? You have officers like that. Yes or no? Do you have officers like that?
Yeah.
They take advantage of their position.
Of course.
Okay, so that has to be monitored.
No, well, you can't monitor that because that's
If I got a complaint on a particular.
There we go. You got a complaint. What we
Okay,
got?
so is that what you was trying to get me to?
Yes,
If I got a
you got a
complaint
complaint.
if I got a complaint on a particular on a officer, you damn right I'm gonna be reviewing.
If you got a complaint, I'm good with everything else that's going
I
to come out
still-
of your mouth.
okay.
You're not.
So we're okay with that.
Yes,
But I'm
because
telling
that's
you,
what it should be for.
So basically, you don't want cameras in buildings. You don't want cameras on the street corner. Not everything's going to be happening out here while my truck is parked out here in the corner. Why they got a camera on the street corner? Oh,
well, guess what? There's no reason.
and they go back if something
Well-
if something did happen on a particular day, they go back and review it, or they just do random views of or particular cameras. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you can't have it both ways.
Well, you can have it both ways, but you're describing two different things. Hey, if my truck was broken into when I came back out, like I grew up around a lot of security cameras. There's a truck broken into, and I go pull the camera between 2 and 3.
I still say this, and I respectfully disagree with you.
Oh, of course, that's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, you know we boys. You got me. You woke me up now.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, you woke me up now. But
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation, but I'm going to tell you this. This is how I feel about it, and I'm not changing. We have officers that talk rough to the public.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, if I'm sitting there looking at body cam, and I can make a good sound judgment on was it necessary for him to amp it up like that, or we're just looking at random, and they only look at it for a few minutes. And they're not looking at a whole 8-hour or 12-hour shift. They're only looking at blocks.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that too.
Okay, but if I'm looking at this and I'm like, damn, you take the same attitude with everybody you come in contact with. It's like that officer that's always getting in shootings.
Yeah.
Or that officer that
And now you're describing something different because
right,
you have something.
But 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna. Everybody is not just because they're reviewing random body cam does not mean that you're gonna get called into the office. They may call you and say, "Hey man, we're reviewing body cam.
Yeah, and that's what we say.
What's going on? Did you have a bad day? What do you mean? Well, should I get my attorney? Blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
Not everything requires an attorney, man.
Hey.
Not everything requires you to have an attorney. You talking to your manager.
But that's the profession.
Well, it's too far gone. But that's under some managers. You may feel like that under some managers, but if you're working in that same shop, you should have a good relationship with your boss. You should have a relationship where, you know what? Yeah, maybe I need to tone that down a little bit. Maybe an improvement can be had out of random reviews.
I totally agree, but a lot of it is
not every boss is gonna cut your throat. That's the way you feel. You feel like every boss is gonna cut your throat.
No, I'm saying that some do. What about those people? That they're looking at those things just to write you up to say I did something.
I don't know. Me personally, I haven't come across.
But they exist.
I haven't come across that.
No, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I'm not saying that they don't exist, but but you also can't say that in the opposite, that every body cam that's reviewed is looking to fire somebody.
I didn't say that. I said it's an investigation.
Or no, what you wanted for is only investigations. But with the purpose of the body cam, they are doing random reviews, just like they do a random urinalysis. It's random reviews. What?
Is it always random though? Because sometimes people, somebody gets called for a load of coke and the whole spot gets randomly urine.
Well, I mean, hey, you're around these guys more. You're around them more than you are with your significant other and your family. Exactly. So who's to know? We just got done talking about how guys, have drinks after work, and sometimes they're in their uniform sitting in somebody's driveway because they don't want to go home.
Yep.
So I mean, come on, man. I don't want to say birds of a feather flock together, but
hey, but you see what's happening right here?
Dialogue.
The new generation, they don't get that. They go home, they don't. Hey, remember we used to do things after work?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we used to go to bars and unwind and talk about shit like what we were talking about.
Out of uniform.
Yeah, out of uniform.
Yeah, we used to hit the Roxy.
Yeah,
I know about it.
Yeah, but guess what? They don't do that no more. They don't. Everybody's they're off duty. They got this. They got that. Nobody has time to communicate anymore.
Right.
And it shows.
Yeah.
And everything that has manifested is, you know what? I remember there was a day where hey, it was Friday night. We're all gonna, like you said, we're all gonna go. Mm-hmm. You insert place. You interacted together. It wasn't, that crowd didn't get us to where we were just talking about, because you could hang out with your managers. Your managers didn't feel like they were too good to hang out with you.
No.
And you knew to respect them.
Mm-hmm.
And and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that was what's lacking in our conversation, because now it literally is us versus them. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way.
I'm not gonna. I was cool with my squad.
I was cool with my squad.
Yeah, but I just, I felt, I made sure that there was,
They still call you.
not berries. What's the word I'm looking for?
You-
We knew where we stood.
Yeah, you're fair.
I was fair with my folks.
Yeah.
And if I got to review, if I would have had to review some film, I would call them in. I'll be like, hey man, hey look, if I heard from another person, hey man, you might want to check on this guy. He might be going through something.
Exactly.
But that also goes back where, look, you might have been able, a manager might have been able to figure out, what, this guy's been going through something.
Exactly, because people are talking.
Because, or even that body cam is talking. Yeah, you see in the video and you checking the demeanor of the person, checking out the demeanor of the person that they're having that encounter with, but you can also tell by the tone.
I'll give you a good example of it's one of the first body cam footage I reviewed for one of my random people.
Mm-hmm.
I know we gotta go. This is one of my favorite stories. I turn on the video, I pick a random video.
Right.
And it was before, they have the minute, it activates, it records a minute before you turn it on. And it comes on, and it's one of my guys in his car, by himself.
Yeah.
And he's just going on this freaking tirade. He's looking at his phone, he's yelling at his phone, he's cussing F-bombs, this, that, and other. That's how the video starts. And he's not even to where he's going yet, and I know why he's doing that, right? Because I was on the phone with him, and I know they had something going on. They got delayed and all this stuff, but because I saw something, and this is to make your point. I was looking at a random video, and it started like that. Now he wasn't talking to anybody on the phone.
He was by himself.
Yeah, he was in the car by himself, which I don't think is a violation of any sort or anything to be disciplined for. So I called him in. And I said, and this is just the fact that either I got to get you guys minute stopwatches so you know, because a minute's a long time.
A long time.
Dude, it's a long time. And I said, if the video starts that way, and I know why you're saying the stuff you're saying, and I know the jerk that you're dealing with. I know you're in your car venting on your own time, going to a place, but when that is reviewed, if you go to your next call and it goes south and the video starts like that,
you're upset going into a call.
You're toast.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not against you. I'm just saying it's not all of that. But on those kind of things, say, hey, you know what? It was something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But when people are getting called in because, I don't like the way you were talking to this person. Well, you weren't in that conversation, so it's not your business. Yeah. That kind of stuff. There's a difference of
just pulling random tape.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I did that, and this is a heads up to you. Like, hey, like I said, you don't want to start a video like that, because the general public,
they're gonna view it a different way.
And when you hear that, it changes their demeanor, and maybe it helps them out for later because there is no pattern. But my thing is getting back to the initial thing. That was his way of coping to calm down before he went to his next call.
Yeah, sometimes we talk to ourselves.
Yeah, and it's like, I can't shut that down.
No, you don't want to shut it down. You want to try to learn that person's, demeanor, behaviors, and his, how he functions.
Right, and I guess what's wrong with that, that's another coping mechanism that will shut down. So now he's got to find something else, because there's a lot of crap during the day that will aggravate the crap out of you.
Bro. Yeah.
It's just a fact, like just our conversation, getting back to, you know what, I agree, there needs to be some sort of break. But the break also doesn't need to be a punishment.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't argue with you on that.
Oh yeah, no,
and not everything, we'll debate that, but not everything needs to be a punishment, but some things do need to be addressed, Some things need to be talked about, just so that you can have a better understanding of the totality of it all.
Yeah, and like I said, law enforcement has gotten to the point where even it's a stressor to retire.
Yeah.
That's also a stressor that literally every part of it. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't make it sound like a horrible profession or anything, but you do get consumed.
Well, that leads up to the next show that we're going to talk about, and that is Shield Up. You got to protect yourself.
Yep, and we're going to get to Charlie's new podcast. You want to talk about that real quick?
It's called Shield Up, man. It's a new show that I'm introducing, and I think that is necessary for young professionals, seasoned leaders, or somebody in between jobs and they want to make transformations. The show is also going to offer tools to fortify mental and emotional defenses, transform challenges and opportunities. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about that on the show.
Okay, that sounds good. And I was talking to you about maybe like chopping some videos up,
Right.
like the way I was doing this, but I think I'm gonna let this one play all the way out because I like the back and forth that we just had,
Right.
and I think a lot of people.
This particular show?
Yeah, this particular
yeah.
show.
Yeah, I don't know what you brought fire on me on that.
I know. I like that. but
I had to defend some things, Some things I'll go along with, but some things I'm like,
yeah.
man, I know what they're doing out there, brother.
But then that's the thing. It's like, but it's always changing.
Yeah, it's always changing.
But you got to give people you don't want to give people too much leeway, but you got to make them realize that where's the release valve?
I want you to have a safe spot. But I also do not want you to damage that trust with us in the public.
Yeah, but do you think is it the management's responsibility to find your employees a safe spot where they can deal with their issues, or is it just you're on your own and you figure out?
No, you know that about me. You know that about me because not everybody's gonna be able to find it on their own. Sometimes you're gonna need some help. It's just like us going to the gym. We couldn't find what we were looking for to help us, gain
Right.
the success that we've had so far in our with our journey to transformation of our physical and mental bodies. Sometimes you need a professional.
Yeah.